Okay, so a bit about what we're doing at Aqua Medical. So our target is type 2 diabetes. And I think this headline, staggering cost, really captures it. I pulled this infographic from the ADA website at the end of last year, and already all the numbers are much bigger. So it says here 34 million in the US with type 2 diabetes. It's 37 million now. It says 88 million with prediabetes. It's 93 million now. So more than 1 in 3 adults. And with more than 50 pharmacologics out there, patients are not well controlled. And you know the host of complications, including mortality. So true epidemic, enormous spending, and not really changing the course of the disease. So what are we doing at Aqua? Well, our goal is to change the course of the disease, and in part to minimize and potentially eliminate injectables in certain cohorts of patients. And we have a device-based approach to this. It's a 30-minute outpatient procedure. It's a catheter, goes through an endoscope, goes through the mouth, and we use hot water vapor ablation in the GI tract. And here's what the procedure looks like. It's really sort of a garden variety upper endoscopy procedure. You can see a common endoscope go through the esophagus, through the stomach, and into this 10-inch or so section called the duodenum. You can see our blue catheter coming through the endoscope. And what we do is we deploy these 2 self-expanding discs, and they create this really neat little treatment chamber. And from that center shaft, we precisely dose the hot water vapor for the ablation. And hot water is the perfect ablation agent because it has high energy. It can get uniform coverage in the irregularities, and it can get a controlled ablation into the mucosa. And it produces this beautiful effect. We call it the box effect. It's searing, almost like you would sear a tuna, just a millimeter or so of the surface of the mucosa. Okay, so the big question is, how can this work for type 2 diabetes? It's actually not really much of a surprise, because there's decades of experience with bariatric procedures for obesity. So gastric bypass, biliary pancreatic diversion, Roux-en-Y, and in common, they basically exclude the duodenum. And what they find in those procedures is that patients, the obesity resolves over weeks and months, but the diabetes is almost immediately resolved. And then a company came out with a very clever, it was a very clever idea, sort of a tube or a sleeve fixed to the lower stomach, covering the duodenum, so food would bypass the duodenum. And they found very similar results, that patients lost weight over weeks and months, but almost immediate dramatic improvement in diabetes and the metabolic values. Now, unfortunately, the company had problems keeping the device in place, but notwithstanding, they validated the concept. And now more recently, there have been endoscopic approaches that have had very impressive results. So I extracted one from this company. Fractal is probably ahead of most, and they have a number of studies. This is one extract. You can see significant improvement in hemoglobin A1C, and actually durability. I was impressed with this. In some cases, 24 months for an outpatient procedure. So now this is a sort of a subset of the who's who in GI endoscopy. And these docs, when we started our company, they were getting us into esophageal ablation to prevent esophageal cancer, moving along, first in human, publication, et cetera. But after time, they came to us and they said, guys, 2 things. Number one, this ablating the duodenum to treat type 2 diabetes, this is a real effect. And number 2, it's enormous, and you guys have the perfect product for it. And this is what they referred to. The product on the left, the catheter is larger than the endoscope. And you can see it requires a physician to basically negotiate 2 devices through the patient's mouth. So what does that mean? Immediately, it's an expert task, a very constrained market, very cumbersome to use. Our procedure, as you saw, goes through the endoscope. Pretty much any GI endoscopist can do our procedure, 30 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes. Very easy to use. The company on the left, some of you may know, has raised over $300 million. Their post money on that round was almost $900 million. We've gotten to this point with less than $15 million. And the advantage we have, we are a platform technology. So by going through the endoscope, just by changing the design of catheter tips, we can address different therapeutic targets throughout the GI tract. So duodenum, for example, esophagus, pancreas, and this is really perfect for a strategic sales force. Where I used to work at Boston Scientific, this would be sort of a nirvana, because this is one customer call point. It's the GI endoscopist, the person who drives the endoscope. All right, we do have a human study, first-in-human study in the esophagus. It's with our focal device, and we do have a publication, so it was very successful. We also have a reimbursement code we can use for esophagus. But the biggest thing we have as a company is we've secured 3 510(k) clearances. And 2 parts of this. One in the green, that gives us all the indications the market leader has, Medtronic's radiofrequency ablation for Barrett's ablation and associated. So that's key, but in the red is the most important. The red gives us the ability to ablate throughout the entire GI tract. So even though we don't have a diabetes-specific indication, we can actually ablate the duodenum and then back into fast-track a diabetes indication afterwards. So we're thrilled. We're actually on the cusp of launching our first-in-human for type 2 diabetes, our first study. Now, lastly, we think we have a great team. This is Greg Barrett. He actually created the market for esophageal ablation with the radiofrequency technology. He sold his company to Covidien Medtronic for $425 million. You can see all his other exits. His idea was that Aqua was the next thing. We were the Tesla versus his combustion engine. Bill Starling's also on our board. Many of you maybe even know him. I tried to put his CV on one page. I said, it's impossible. And I said, well, Bill, how many IPOs do you have? He says, well, 3, I think, or maybe 4. I said, you know, what does that mean? He says, well, we were doing our 4th IPO and we were acquired before we could complete it. So I said, okay, that counts. So we added up all the startups he created. Out there, they're selling more than $4 billion in sales annually. So great guy, wonderful guy. We're lucky that he joined our board. This is the late Pete Nicholas, who founded Boston Scientific. They were with us from the beginning of the company and invested in every round. And even he set it up to continue legacy. So Ithaca Partners continued to invest in our next round. Noble, amazing man. We're just so thankful for his support and advice all along. Shangbei, you may know Shangbei. 3 years in a row, they were rated as the most active VC firm. William Dye is a great partner. They led our Series A. And I've had many battle scars in blue chip and startup companies as well. So I've been around the block. We have a CMO, VK Sharma, serial entrepreneur, also a GI, practicing GI. So he's perfect because any ideas that runs by the true sniff test of someone that does procedures. So takeaway, platform technology, we can address huge needs, but our laser focus is diabetes. 3 510(k)s cleared, strong early clinical work and reimbursement in the esophageal space. All the KOLs will work with us, and I think you'll agree we have a veteran team. We've raised $21 million to date, and we're not really raising at the minute, but we always love to talk to, begin a relationship. That's how we like to start it, because we really love the team, kind of esprit de corps. We have a good team. Bill Starling has a thing called, he says it's the no a-hole rule. He says, yeah, before he joined, he says, do you have any of those guys in your company? I said, well, we had a few, we got rid of them. He says, okay, all right, I'm in. So that's Aqua, thank you.